speak. I know you've got a lot to say, but what I will say, Nick, is right. The way Stephen has articulated his side of things, I need you to sort of try to articulate it similar to that. We don't want to go off into any Madeline McCann's, Jill Dando's. It's the 28-hour period from start to the middle to the end. Your experience, your view, start.
Hi, Ronan. If we keep meeting like this, people will start talking. Nice to see you.
And by the way, no name. I'll just say this: no name callings. Just about the story, okay? Just about the story.
Absolutely. I'm on your channel, and I respect you. If you wanted to maximize the efficiency of getting to the truth, if you ask Stephen to repeat exactly what he just said,
we don't. No. Listen, it's fine.
What I'm saying is, he won't be able to.
Nick.
I have never heard so many lies strung together.
Nick. We don't want to know if you think Stephen is lying. We want to hear your side of things now. Start the 28-hour period off now, and then end it. Your experience. You tell us.
Well, unfortunately, my brain doesn't work being able to structure films from start, middle to the end. But let's bear with me, give me the opportunity, and let's see how well we can do.
What you can remember.
Thank you. It's the orders of things and forgetting stuff and trying to link. So if I forget, which I will, can you try to link me up? And thank you. All right.
I'll try my best.
Good question. And the van came very late. I had explained about my financial situations, and that was fine. No problem whatsoever. I explained I was very, very unfit, and that I would need time to get my mountain legs. That seemed to be no problem whatsoever in our communications, and that's what I was expecting. I was going to rent a van that we agreed 300. It was, and if you ask Stephen live to show you on video the van, you will see the state it is in. What I was doing was to support the project that Stephen had offered and wanted help with. And I was in the position to be able to do that. And I thought it was a worthy project. The idea that Stephen was complaining about me, the sweat, the heat, and all of this at that part of the summer, if you look at the weather forecast, the weather wasn't hot, the van wasn't hot. I was renting the van, he had left his bedding there, and all of a sudden he blames me for all of that.
So can I just put in there, Nick? So, and what your interpretation of that is, that you're giving this man money per month to stay here in this van, €300 a month. You've just stated there. So you're in your sort of terms there, it says this van is furnished with the things that I need to stay here. So if I'm paying him $300 a month, okay,
it had mouse, it had rats. The bedding smelt worse than multiple animals and human excrement. I am stunned.
Well, regardless, Nick, you agree.
The idea to sell that for €300, Ronan, I think is significant. Maybe not it.
But for you not to test the waters first and go up and to see what you're paying $300 a month for.
That was foolish, and I should have.
Yes.
We were going to, but it didn't work out like that. I feel that I was manipulated into a different arrangement where I had less control.
Right, go on. And so you felt that it wasn't substantial, the living arrangements, but you still stayed there. You did you voice your opinions to Stephen that this wasn't substantial?
No, not at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. I realized that I was making a complete life change. The reason I was doing that because Stephen had sold me a lie, which I approved of and wanted to support. What he wanted to do was to initially get money to chip his 6 dogs so he could take them all down into town legally, and he would be very proud of that and felt that that was a responsible thing to do. The next month we were going to buy goats, or he was, because it was his money. I was still going to help with my extra income on the side because I approved of the project, and I also needed a change of pace, a change of life, and to connect back to the mountains rather than be reclused here, avoiding people like William Farthing causing me physical bodily harm in my own house, which he didn't do, but other people have. So I needed to escape. He recognized that. He lied to me about what he could offer to me. And I was invited to a complete shit covered house, which he lived in, which is why he was renting me the van. Now, why he blames me for sleeping on his bedding when he's the landlord and he's organizing it and I'm paying the money, I don't understand why that's a problem, nor
What
why
were the
he should
terms, Nick?
give a
Nick,
right
Nick,
to enter
Nick.
the van.
What were the terms for you to go up there? Everything in that van was yours to stay on. It was a furnished van for you to stay in for €300 a month. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
I don't believe the word furnished was ever used, but it was furnished in every way that it would have been more than satisfactory had any of it not been a health hazard. It
Okay.
was disgusting. And if you don't believe me, ask Stephen to video it tomorrow morning, and you will see his house and his van, which he will never show you. Um, the idea it was
He
three
has
hundred
showed us
euros
though, Nick. He did. He has showed us though. He showed us in
No,
a
he
couple of
didn't. When
videos.
did Ronan? He flashed past the top of a box, and what we saw was an orange frying pan that comes from my house. I've got a matching one on my cooker right now that I didn't take with me.
Hmm.
We saw nothing else. You've seen nothing of Stephen Farthing's
Okay.
living environment at all, I believe, because he would never show you because it's absolutely disgusting.
Right. Okay. So moving on from that now, it wasn't. You didn't feel it was substantial, but you've just admitted there you didn't
No, no, no,
voice
that's not
your.
true at all. No, no, no. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes,
Yeah.
you're correct. But I did not complain about anything. I was lavish with praise. Look,
Right.
imagine, Ronan, if I was setting up a new life, I had now suddenly moved all my stuff onto a very remote mountain with a man who was bullying me. Imagine how
Well,
I
hold
would
on,
think
Nick.
that
Nick,
that
you
would
can't
turn
just say
out
that. You can't
if
just
I.
listen. You can't, Nick. You can't just say that without explaining that you've jumped from moving from your house to into his, and it not being substantial, it being a shithole, to him bullying you. Was there bullying in the hours
It's
previous to you?
constant harassment, bullying. Um, um, it's rather difficult to describe because it was a psychological operation, but it's something that's very natural, I believe, for Stephen Farthing. He admitted yesterday on Lucifer 74 that he's a psychopath, and
Explain the
he's
bully. No,
told.
no, I don't care what Stephen says. I care what happened to you. I don't care what. So tell me from the moment that you've
I
left,
can explain some of the psychopathic bits.
Nick. Let me break this down for you. Explain to me from whenever you left your house to go up to his. Explain to me the bullying in them short space of hours. The bullying that he put you through, not throughout the whole process, just from whenever you left your house and you were with him in the, as you say,
Okay.
the van for those hours. What type of bullying did he put you through?
He knew my financial situation and I didn't have all the cash that we both wished I did, which meant that we had to go at some point down to the cash point machine and sort out cash. I can't remember exactly how much I had. I think it was €500.
Hmm.
We had agreed 300 on the truck, and the van driver and he arrived very late. And we put the stuff in the van and off we went. It didn't take us very long to get there. The road is hell, the mountain road, and the van driver did an incredible job getting us there without killing us all. Um, we unpacked the van with a lot of stuff, everything I owned, everything, almost literally every last thing I possessed. And the van driver went away with Farthing, who disappeared for a couple of hours. I put my
Hmm.
stuff together in the van. He came back. He told you just now that he spent the €20 I gave him on alcohol for him and the van driver. He was therefore under the influence of alcohol. He came into the van. I don't remember the specific order, and I don't think it's particularly important. He had a smoke. He blames it on me and the RSO. That's fine. So he's telling us he's paranoid, perhaps. But then what he did was to start to order me around and tell me what I was going to do, exactly how, in his van. And he was very particular and extremely focused on what I would and would not do and what was acceptable. So
Right.
I
So
wasn't there
here's a
as a
question from
I
Nilo
wasn't
Mack.
there as a guest.
I got a question from Nilo Mack, and it's very, very relevant. Thanks, Nilo. Nilo's one of my mods, top guy. Did the bullying start before Nick moved into Steve's, or did it start his first hour of living there? That's there. That's a lot of bullying to take in the first 48 hours of me. So basically, what he's trying to say here is, did the bullying start previous to you moving up there, or was it just up there that the bullying started?
I don't
In your
suffer bullies, and
no, no, no,
I would
Nick,
never
Nick,
have
Nick,
gone there. I
Nick.
would
So
never
did
have
the
gone there if I had been bullied first. The bullying
right,
started immediately he had control of me, and I had no way of escaping him. He is
right,
very fit in the mountains, very experienced. He knows his way around. He's extremely aggressive. And I had told him that I would need time to get my mountain legs because I hadn't been out and about for years, literally, and my muscles were wasted away. So the heroic fucking chisel photograph that you used of me in the last podcast, well, I'm getting back to shape, but it's taking a while.
right. So the bullying started as whenever you got there, you felt like he was being controlled
Instantly, he got hold
instantly.
of me in the van. He started to control the issue, and it never stopped. He was never nice
Right.
to me, and I was never angry at him.
Right. So now the incident, the so what I'm getting is that there's two separate stories there. Basically, Stevens telling his experience of him of a very nice experience of him helping you out. He's changing his life to help you out, and you're telling us that whenever you went up there, it was instantly that he started to become very controlling towards you and certain other aspects, and as you call it, bullying. Would it be right in saying whenever you went up to this van that you felt that um so like you felt like this was the way it was going to be now, this is how I changed my life? How did you feel? Why would you not just walk away, get your stuff, and just go again? Why would you
I,
stick
I
around?
Well, because I don't have the strength or the ability or the number of arms to carry it, and it's
Yes,
such a bad track that unless I hired that same guy back again who I didn't know,
yes.
or someone else I didn't know, there's no way that I. And Farthing had told me very clearly, not that point, but later, that if anybody was to come up the track, they would seriously regret it and he would spoil their entire day. He didn't put it in those terms. He's
Put it
very
in his
protective.
terms, Nick. Put it in his terms, Nick.
I
Don't be
couldn't begin. I can't begin to remember specifically, and I don't want to misquote him, but he's a very violent man, and he likes to use that as threats. And it would, he claimed that it would have involved immense violence had my friends come to rescue me or pick up my stuff or whatever. I didn't ask him any of that, but that is the kind of scenario that I'm painting without remembering the actual specifics of what he said, when, and how it fitted in. But this was a continual 28-hour psyop that was interrupted only by a short sleep. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I was not sure at what time I was supposed to go down to the house, where Farthing has insisted I come down in the morning when I wake up. Now, all I wanted to do was to ask him what time would be good with you, because I wake up very early normally. I don't want to disturb you. And he was very non-specific. So I woke up at 4 o'clock. I looked, there was no light at Stephen's. So I went back to bed, had a smoke, went to sleep, woke up, and Stephen finally came back at 11 o'clock or something thereabouts, knocked on the door, if I remember correctly. I don't think he came in, but he started to move some solar panels around. I went outside to greet him. He was not super friendly, but he wasn't hostile, and I was friendly. I touched him on his arm like a friend, like that, and he used that, I believe, as an opportunity to freak out. And from that point onwards, he went into a ballistic, diabolic act which was exceedingly convincing, which ended in my feeling that I needed to get the fuck off that mountain if I was going to remain alive. And I still consider myself fortunate to have been able to do that. I have never heard so little truth and so many lies with such a story. And I would invite Stephen to tell that story
Right,
exactly
right, right.
again. He
So
will
right,
not
right.
be
So
able to.
no, right, right. So right, yeah, I
And I
wouldn't be
will be
asking
able
that.
to tell you my
Right.
story
Yes,
every time.
we'll not be
And I'll tell
asking
you how he
Stephen.
beat me, and I'll tell you why
Nick,
he beat me. I'll tell
Nick.
you how he put me on video when he was beating me. I'll tell you he used the axe, he used a bow saw, he threw knives at me, not to hurt me, but to push them to me so I could use them to defend myself. And I honestly believe he wanted me to attack him with a weapon so he could be a victim somehow and blame that on me, which put me in a very difficult position because I couldn't defend myself. And neither do I. I let people beat me up because I'm dumb and not, doesn't matter. And when he beat me, because I was sitting cross legged on the bunk, without, with my t-shirt and my underpants cross-legged, because I'd just been in bed and woken up. I'd sat up. He had arrived. Now he had come into the van. I was cross-legged. He bought a camera, and he started. Let me think of the order of this. He had a camera. He was very hostile. I can't at the moment remember the specifics of the hostility, but what he did was to order me around, and I was very unhappy that I was going to be staying in that environment under the circumstances he had promised, which now were obviously not going to be fulfilled. So that was troubling, and I stood my ground. So I was staying in the van that I was paying for that we had agreed. He understood the terms and when I could pay for it, and I had the money to give him the £300 that we had agreed, or euros. He never asked for money up front, a month's advanced rent. So that's another lie. So he could have accepted the 300. He could have gone into town and done everything he claims that he needed to do, but that wasn't good enough. So he pushed me around, he bullied me, he ordered me around, he was verbally very, very hostile and extremely aggressive, and I was cross legged. As he came over me to beat me with his knuckles on the side of my head, which is why I believe I have the detached retina, oh, it's on this side. Um, 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 I pushed him away with my legs. I didn't kick him in any way. I used a force, but it didn't push him over. It pushed him away from me, so he was not within fists face distance. He claims that I attacked him first, which is not true. I've spoken to a very criminal friend of mine who says that in prison, and I didn't know this until afterwards, prisoners often beat each other with this side because if it's this, then it bruises easily and it can be seen by prison officers. So that is what he had done this side and this side. And I still have lumps here, which are sensitive to the touch, and the detached retina, which causes me visual problems very frequently. So the fact that he videoed it, it was about 40 minutes long. I don't believe that he actually put it on live, but he said he was. And this is a theme I would like everybody to know. When I went down eventually with Farthing and met that Moroccan man, who Farthing earlier on Lucifer 74 yesterday said, or actually it was a week ago, maybe on yours, Ronan, that he had seen me carrying my stuff and the Moroccan man carrying me. Now, Farthing says that that didn't happen. He describes it in a different way. The Moroccan carried my own stuff. I was exhausted, and I explained to Farthing that I would need time to get my legs And he had explained to me before I had arrived that that would be fine. There would be no pressure whatsoever. But he forced marched me in the middle of the night as I was absolutely exhausted to the ATM. Sorry, this is actually the end of the next day. So that was the beginning of the first day. Then all hell broke loose. He told me that he would remove my jaw and my nose if I was to do this or not do that. He would dress me up in a GIMP uniform and parade me around town. He put his face in mine, and I can only, I cannot describe the smell, or the designed hostility and fear he tried to create into me, the terror. I think that most people would have been fucking terrified. And um, because I take Valium, I believe, and also because I've suffered a lot of stress in my life, and because I have higher faith and beliefs, I somehow wasn't as scared as he wished I had been. But at the end of the first day, he force marched me down to the bank. He sat at the end of the corridor where the
Now
bank
hold on,
is,
Nick.
and
Hold on.
yeah,
You can't
yes,
skip by that because
no, I can't. You're right.
Stephen was very articulate whenever he explained this. What do you
I'm
mean
not.
forced march? My forced march could be
Oh,
different from
forced
yours,
fucking marched me down the mountain. He could
right?
not have been more aggressive.
Explain
He,
that.
he ordered me
Explain that,
around
please.
like I was in the army, and he gave me time limits to go and get my things to do this. I could. It's difficult to explain, folks, because a my memory doesn't work as well as I would like and would be easiest.
Just explain the
B,
experience, Nick. Explain the experience. You don't have to go into
if
every
you ask
detail.
me
Just explain the
direct
experience.
questions and direct me better.
Okay.
Okay, so we went up onto the terrace like he explained in the morning. He
Hmm.
says that I didn't have any cups, which isn't true. I don't have any cups in my house because he has them all.
No, but
So
Nick,
he
Nick,
never made.
Nick, Nick. Just right.
Yeah,
Just so we don't you go off on a path here.
thank you.
Explain
Yeah, who
to
cares
us
about coffee?
what do you mean he forced marched you? Tell me what does that mean? He said he grabbed you. He was physical with you. He was verbal
Okay.
with
At
you.
the end,
Tell
at
explain
the
the
end.
explain the
Okay,
process of you. Nick, hold on, please. Explain the process of you from when you started walking to the end of your walk to the town. What was
I
that
think we
like?
need to start before the walk because
Okay, okay.
that is important. So remember that he had beaten me. Then he had sat me and he had screamed and shouted and threatened me and my life for about 7 continuous hours. When I hoped that when I was allowed to leave, if I was allowed to leave, I could go to the van, have a smoke, and actually relax. That wasn't going to happen. He told me I had 5 minutes to go and organize myself because he and I were going to go down because I hadn't done this, this, and this that I had
Hmm.
promised, which wasn't true. And we were now going to go down so I could give him the money. I had about €500. Um, but that wasn't good enough. He wanted 600. So I had no choice. I had already been beaten. He had tried to terrify me. He had explained how incredibly well trained he is in martial arts, and I believed him, and I still do. He told me that in one swipe he could remove my lower jaw and would, and my nose if I did or didn't do certain things. I
Right.
couldn't move. I couldn't talk. If I talked, he would sometimes listen, but more frequently uh, melt down. And several times he came so close into my face, sort of diagonally, like, as monster as he could possibly be. And frankly, Hollywood would have been impressed.
Right.
I
So
was.
right now
I've never,
the
never
march
seen
the march
anything so
right the
diabolic in my
march
life.
the march down the mountain. Explain that the walk down the mountain, as you call a forced march. Explain that, please.
Oh, it's very simple. He marched ahead. He's taller, he's fitter, and I had. Did I have stuff with me? I don't even remember. I was fucking exhausted anyway. I'm 60 years old nearly, and he's not. Whatever the excuse is, I was shagged, and that wasn't good enough. We
It's
actually
maybe not a
walked
good
down.
term to use, Nick.
We,
It's not a good. That's not a good term to use. But what I'm going to say is right is
we,
so
we we actually walked down quite civilly. We didn't talk
Right.
to each other much. He
So
walked
you
way
weren't
ahead
you
of
weren't
me.
you weren't forced marched then, Nick. This is what we're trying to say
No,
here.
I was told we were going to do this, and
Right.
he made me come with him, but I was slower than he was, so he had to adjust to my pace because he couldn't do much about it.
Right.
And
Okay.
every neighbor we passed, he told me what a mafia boss they were, how connected to the police they were, how criminal they were, how I
Nick, it's
shouldn't knock
irrelevant.
on that door or this door. Well, it's
It's
not,
irrelevant.
because when I escaped, I could have gone and called the police from the neighbors. But because he
Right.
had
Okay.
set that up.
Right. So what I'm going to say to you is, right, is you get to the town, explain the experience in the town with Stephen.
Because Farthing had gone with all my money, I thought, to get drunk, and I was right.
What do
I
you mean?
didn't want to
Explain
go.
that you're not explaining the you taking out the money. Explain that because
Sorry,
Nick,
because I went down twice.
yeah,
Stephen marched me down to town to double dip the ATM and give him €600. We then went and had a burger, and then he went to party. I told him I was leaving and I was going up the mountain to get my stuff, and goodbye.
but was there not a
And
scenario in the cafe? Was what explain the cafe?
look,
What
Ronan, how many steaming rows have you heard in any restaurants or cafes ever?
I live in Northern Ireland, mate. That happens all the time.
And actually, I live in Spain too. It didn't happen. Look, I
Right,
would not expect to be treated nicely if I treated my host badly. Simply, I don't treat people like that
right.
really on any basis at all, except if the internet gets in the way.
Can
And
I just I just say to you, Nick, I there is one common denominator in this here. This RSO weed has done something, in my opinion, to the heads of you and Stephen here. It's fucked you up in
No,
some
it's
type of way.
completely ridiculous allegation. It's
Yeah,
completely insane. I understand what you're implying, because that's the
yeah,
one thing that we have that you don't understand, and this is a psychotic situation, so that could be the reason. In my opinion, it's another one of Stephen Farthing's useless sideshow events. It's a
right. So
deflection, in my opinion.
you move away from
No,
the
no
cafe.
one else I've ever given the RSO to ever complained about it or had a problem.
Okay, so you move away from the cafe, and then Steven says that you get involved with dodgy characters that take you to some type of crack den that dodgy people hang
No, no,
about
no.
in.
What happened was I went back up the mountain as quickly as I could. I packed as much as I had to prioritize what was important. I make a living as a photographer, a part-time living as a photographer, a film producer and photographer, and had a company in Sweden doing that. I think you know about that.
Hmm.
Um, so I had to prioritize what I could take and what I had to leave. I
Hmm.
left almost everything, but I have a very expensive professional camera. I had computers, and I had, I think, about 7 hard drives, um, which are very heavy because they're the old style, and everything else that you have in your house, except furniture. So obviously, I couldn't take very much. So what I had done was to destroy the hard drives. My hard drives do not have nonce material on them, Jay. What they do actually have is, they're backed up in Sweden, multiple areas online and multiple times offline. So they weren't that important for me to gain access to the material. It was vital that that information wasn't accessible to Farthing, because he's very manipulative, and he would have been very happy to plug those into the computer that I did have to leave, and then get access to everything that I've been doing for the last 20 years. That's in my opinion, had trolled my family 1 year before he abducted me, which is why I think he abducted me, because he planned this meticulously to get into my headspace
But there's a difference,
to understand.
Nick. I'll just say this here, right? Because listen. I know to forget about the live chat. There's people that will not believe your side. There's people that will believe your side, and vice versa
Sure,
for
sure.
Stephen. But what I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
say is, that it was not an abduction. He did not abduct you. You went up there willingly. He didn't abduct you. You could say maybe there's a case for he
Yes,
persuaded
it's a
you,
very good point.
but he did not abduct you.
I went willingly under false circumstances, and those are the subtle legal terms that I am presenting to the audience to determine whether they think that this could be an abduction or just a robbery and a beating. It's a very
Right. Well,
subtle legal term, and I don't
yeah,
think that the average viewer would be able to understand, other than to
yeah.
give their own sort of non-legal opinion, which is a value
Yes,
to me. I'd like
but
to know what
I
people
would
think.
say this. I
And
would
I
say
don't
this.
know myself. I
You
must be honest, I
probably
do not know
Nick
myself.
Nick. You probably have a case with everything else, well, as you say, the violence or whatnot, right?
I have a case with this, but
But
it's debatable
but
if it's true
but
or not.
but what I will say is, that if this went to a legitimate court, it wouldn't be put down as an abduction.
No, 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 Roland, this is the problem, is that no
Hmm.
one has done their due diligence, so no one has a right to an opinion at the moment. You
Yes,
guys
but
didn't know, you don't know what happened, and the detail, the devil is in the detail, and it's absolutely critical to determine what happened.
yes, no, listen, I get that 100%. But if this went, I understand that. But for instance, if I say to you now, Nick, and I say, listen, if you come up to my house, I have all this here and I'll do this here. If you come up here and then that's under false pretenses, that's not an abduction.
Well, when you're held hostage and then force marched around and have money extracted under false pretenses, I think that that starts to mount towards a potential abduction. There were so many different things that I was forced and controlled to do. That's why I
Yes,
think I was held hostage and potentially
yes.
abducted.
That's where you
They're
have a
very
case.
serious allegations, I do understand, but there was a very, 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 very serious
Yes,
event.
100%. You
And I'm
have a
not
case.
certain myself. I would like to know myself.
You have a case yourself, Nick. But for instance, if for instance, if you took this to court right now, right, and they told you to go through every little bit of details in regards to you going up to Stephen Farthing's house, you could turn around and say, "I was falsely persuaded to go up there, but under no circumstances would this be seen as an abduction. Maybe held forcefully against your will, and you wanted to leave,
I think you'll
and
find that that's the
that's
same
no
thing. It doesn't
no
matter where
that's
the
Nick.
force arrived.
That's even debatable. But what I'm trying to say is that this was not an. He didn't go down to your house, put you in the back of a van, and take you up to the house and say, and then you go, "Where am I now?" He didn't abduct you.
Ronan, he
You
didn't
went
tie
there.
me up and bundle me in the back of a van
Yeah.
from my house, but that's effectively what he did the minute no one was watching. The minute he had control of me,
Hmm.
without anybody else around, that is when I claimed the abduction happened. So he had set the whole thing up with an idea to effectively create the circumstances where he could control whatever it was that he wanted. But I believe because I stood
Hmm.
up to him, he realized that there was no way that we could live without him killing me on his property. So that's why he actually allowed me to go. He realized that he would gain 600 euros, everything I possess, and he wouldn't have to suffer me being there.
So I get that. I get that 100%, Nick. I totally understand your side of things, but when it just comes to that one point, I don't believe this was an
Say it
abduction.
again.
But
Well, let's
listen,
get into that point. It's really important, I think, then.
well,
So
because
sorry, can you
he
prompt me?
didn't. So right, for instance, he wasn't there. You went willingly out of your house and got into a van to go up to his.
Well, it's not
That's
entirely true because the delay with the van was so much that I had said, look, why not forget the van? My landlord has offered to drive me, and that was the first sign that something wasn't going to work out. He started to freak out at that point and started to get angry at me, saying, "Well, we had already." Blah, 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 blah. without including the fact that the time frame had warped massively from the start of a day to the very end of the day, that made it very difficult being in the mountain with lots of gear moving into a new environment in the middle of the dark. So it wasn't dark when we arrived, but it was getting that way. And I can't remember how that links up with what you asked
So
me. I'm sorry.
just to let you know, Eamon's put a good comment up here. He goes, "I remember the Shankill butchers. That was abductions." Now, this is what people need to realize, right? Yes, your mind has perceived that as an abduction, but an abduction is you have been lifted from an area that you didn't want to go from and took to another area forcefully. That didn't happen in this instance. Now, I'm not saying you don't have a case with, as you say, with the violence and all the other stuff, but I do believe
No, that's an
maybe
interesting point.
what you're dealing with here is that you maybe felt like you were persuaded to go up under false pretenses of what that situation was, and you went up. You weren't happy with it. Other stuff happened, violent stuff happened that you didn't agree with, and in doing that, you've believed that from the start was an abduction, the middle was
No, I
violent,
didn't believe from the start it was an abduction at all.
right?
No, 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 no.
Right.
No, no, no,
So just
no. It
yeah.
was days and weeks and months later that I started to wonder, was it an abduction?
Well, then
And
this
because
is the
I'm
thing of the
involved with the barrister.
Nick. People who are abducted know they're abducted straight away.
No, 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 I'm sorry, guys, but we don't live in that much of a black and white world always, or at least I certainly don't, or I didn't in this scenario. And I think that Stephen understands the law and is
Yes.
intelligent and criminally minded enough to
Yes.
be cleverer than to put a sack over my head, a zip tie my arms behind my back and throw me in the back of a van. That would
Okay.
be
Listen,
more
that's
clear.
fine.
This was much
That's
more
fine.
subtle.
That's fine. Listen, that's okay. And do you know what? What I'll say to that one is we
But,
can
but, but
agree to
Eamon
this.
is correct about the abduction, and I think
Yeah.
that it's very, very much easier to prove the beating and the robbery, or the however it might be termed in legal terms, but very much more difficult. And I think if I had a lawyer and we went to court, and I hope that that will be the case, then the lawyer might well be good to advise me to prosecute for the beating and the robbery and not the
Yes.
abduction, because that would be harder to prove. But what I would like to do is to see if it can be proven. And the devil is in the detail. And if we don't have the time, the will, or the wish, we will never understand the critical points. Even I won't.
So this is where I agree here, right? And listen. I'm not on anybody's side. Okay, I did speak to Nick before this. I didn't know. I didn't even know Stephen existed. I'm not going to lie to you, Nick. I thought he was. I thought he was an imaginary character until he came on YouTube. But what I do believe
Oh,
is there
really?
was a.
Really?
I.
Really?
Yeah.
You're serious, Ronan? That's serious.
I.
I thought you believed me.
I know. I know. I
Look, look,
believe.
Roland, didn't I send you the police report?
No, no, but I didn't. But what I'm trying to say is, I didn't actually know a Stephen Farthing existed until he came on the YouTube, and I was very shocked that this guy came on the YouTube.
But
But
excuse
just
me, Ronan, I had sent you an email,
yeah, Nick.
which was an entire representation of the questions
Yes,
you've just
yes,
asked me. I've explained in a couple of
yes.
pages with
I
GPS
get that.
coordinates.
I
Can we
get
not
that.
produce that? I mean,
No, no,
that
no. I
sent
get
to the
that.
police,
I
that
get
sent
that,
to the
Nick.
barrister. So what's the problem there, Ronan?
No, I get no. Listen, 100%. I get that. I understand. I know that that's all real now. But what I'm trying to say is that
Hmm.
coming to this situation, I do believe that there was a fear put into you, right? But we have to agree to disagree on the abduction part. Now, the part that I want you to finish off
But
here,
I
Nick,
don't think you
is
could disagree because you don't have the evidence ahead in front of you, Ronan. With respect, so I
yes.
know that life
Well, what
doesn't
you've
work like
told
that.
me with the
Go on,
information
go
that
on.
you've
Sorry.
provided, with the information that you've provided to me, it doesn't sound like an abduction. It sounds like manipulation.
Then I respect your opinion.
Okay,
I've certainly
that's all.
manipulated
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
never ever thought of that word, and that might be a more suitable word.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if that's the case, then I'm not ever going to apologise to Farthing, but I will say perhaps I was not abducted. I was manipulated, beaten, robbed, threatened with my life, held hostage, I believe.
Yeah.
So that would
So
work for me.
so what I'm going to say is explain now the incident with you. I don't know if you explained it before. Forgive me if I've missed this part with you in that crack den, as Stephen says that you were in.
Sorry, what crack then?
He says you went off with somebody and
Oh,
you
no, 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 it
went,
was a toilet
yeah,
block on the beach, and because
right,
I okay, so when I came down with my so we arrived in the van, unpacked. He disappeared. He came back semi-drunk. He thought, no, we had a smoke later than I would have liked. He left the van. I went to sleep. The next day at about 11 o'clock, all hell broke loose. And that evening, we went down to town where we separated uh, each other's company, him with my money, to party. And I went up the mountain as quickly as I could so I could get the hell away with my life. And the computer I'm talking to you on, my tablet, 5 t-shirts, and
hmm
not much more. Um, so there in the middle of the night with an absolutely full Halloween moon,
hmm
um, I went down the mountain, which was very easy because of the moon and the track after it was whatever. And instead of going into La Mamola, which is the town where it's the nearest town and where I had just been to the bank, I went in the opposite direction because I did not want to see Stephen Farthing.
hmm
I was very heavy gear. I was exhausted, and I heard a voice. And I followed the voice, which led to the Moroccan man who was talking to his girlfriend because that's the only place he can get a signal to talk to her over in Morocco. After he had finished shouting at her, he's a very nice guy, actually. I mean, to me, we talked, and he not only led the way to back to La Mamola because the direction I had chose didn't have any accommodation, no hotels or hostels to rent. So he took me back to La Mamola to try to find me somewhere to stay. And we walked around for quite a long time, and he was incredibly helpful. He offered me to stay at his apartment. That didn't work out for reasons that we didn't discuss. But what he did do was to show me the toilet block on the beach. Now, I didn't sleep at all that night, but Farthing went to party. Farthing has a habit of beating people, anyone that he sees as a threat or that he wishes, on video, thinks somehow that videoing them excuses him and gives him a reason for doing this. You know, they've insulted him somehow, and this is his vengeance, and he thinks it's justifiable.
Nick, would you be happy to take questions now if I brought Stephen on to
Yes, I
have?
would.
Because I think
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
So,
Good idea.
so what
Yes, thank you.
what I want to what I want to say is here now is right is that you've had both of you have had your say in regards to the
No,
20th
no, no.
version.
Could I say one very quick
Yes,
thing first, Ronan?
yes, yeah. Go ahead.
Um, the morning after the toilet block where I slept on the floor, Stephen Farthing knocked. He didn't knock on the door. He opened the door, which wouldn't lock, and stood in the doorway as a shadow, as a silhouette, explaining to me that not that he was sorry, but he was upset and that he was crying. I was very interested why he should tell me that. I believe he wanted me to come back onto the mountain. However, I said that I was leaving, and he and I left, and we had that period without bad words at all. I realised I was very isolated again. Plus, also, I was exhausted, and I wasn't actually feeling angry. I was feeling more protective of my safety and my life. He disappeared. The next morning, I went to the cafe over the beach road, which was 50 meters from the toilet block. And as I went into the cafe and sat down, there was two guys sitting on the right and the left of me. The Moroccan was sitting on the one side. There was another local guy sitting on the other side. They both had bruises on their faces. And when we discussed what happened, they both explained that Stephen Farthing that previous night had beaten them up on video. And we talked about his modus operandi. So that's how I feel confident to be able to tell you that it's not just my opinion. Paul Ellis, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So are you finished? So can
Oh,
I
sorry,
bring
sorry, sorry.
Steve?
You remind me again. I've gone dead. What was I talking
Right.
about?
So
Is
no,
the
it
executive
doesn't matter.
cover?
So Stephen's going to come on, right, and he's going to react to what you said, and then questions
Yeah,
are going to be
please.
asked.
That's lovely.
One person's going to ask a question, and the other person's going to be muted. Okay. So for now,
Oh,
you're going to be muted, Nick. Okay.
I was just wondering if we might take a couple of seconds and see if we cover bits and pieces. But you're running the show and you're doing a great job.
No,
So thank you for
look,
having me.
look.
And let's do it your way.
The the 28 hours has been covered by both of yous, right? I think a
No,
lot
no,
there.
no, no. It hasn't begun to be described,
Right.
Ronan, and
But
that's kind of critical.
you've had a lot. You've what I'm trying to try
I've
to
had
say
an
is
opportunity. You got a very fair opportunity.
you've had a lot of time to explain it, more time than
Thank you.
Stephen had to explain it,
It's
and
true. That's
I
true.
think it's only fair. So I'm going to bring
And
Stephen
it's
back
all
on
right.
here.
Thank you.